My name is Sam, and I've worked the late night shift at Taco Bell in Detroit for the past 6 months. It's not a glamorous job, but it pays the bills and keeps me busy during hours when the world feels a little quieter. Or at least, it used to. There was one rule my manager, Mr. Grayson, made sure I never forgot. Lock the doors at exactly 4 a.m. No sooner, no later. He never explained why. Whenever I asked, he'd just shake his head and say, "It's just how it's done, Sam. Don't question it." At first, I thought it was some weird company policy, maybe to prevent late-night robberies or something. But the way he said it, the way his voice dropped to a whisper, made me uneasy. It wasn't a suggestion, it was an order. That night, as we neared closing time, everything felt normal. The last few customers had already left, and the kitchen was mostly cleaned. Grayson checked his watch every few minutes, his fingers tapping against the counter in an impatient rhythm. 2 minutes to go, he muttered under his breath, walking toward the front entrance. I was in the back, finishing up, when my phone buzzed. A text from my roommate. "Hey, you picking up breakfast on the way home?" I sighed, quickly typing a reply. That's when I heard it, the sound of the front door locking. Grayson sighed in relief and turned back toward me. "See? 4 a.m. sharp, like always." I nodded, not thinking much of it. But I should have. Because the next time I forgot. And that's when everything changed. The next night was just like any other. I was alone with Grayson again, cleaning up as the clock ticked toward 4. But this time he was in the office finishing payroll, and I was the only one in the kitchen. I kept checking my phone, scrolling through random messages and memes to kill time. My shift was almost over, and I was exhausted. Then, my roommate texted again. "Dude, I'm starving. Grab me something?" I sighed. Fine. I'd make him a quick taco before heading out. I was so focused on throwing it together that I didn't check the time. Didn't notice the seconds creeping past 4. When I finally looked at the clock, my stomach dropped. 4:06 a.m. I rushed to the front to lock the doors, my hands shaking. But the street outside was completely empty. No weird figures, no shadows moving. Everything seemed fine. Grayson didn't notice either. He just grabbed his coat and yawned. "See you tomorrow, Sam." I nodded, feeling a strange weight in my chest. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. The next morning, I arrived at work a little before noon. I expected Grayson to be inside already, setting up for the lunch rush. But the restaurant was still dark. The front door was unlocked. I hesitated before stepping inside. The air smelled stale, like it hadn't been touched since last night. Everything was eerily still. No sound of grills sizzling, no cash register beeping. "Grayson," I called, my voice barely above a whisper. No answer. Then, I heard a faint scratching noise coming from the back. Slow. Weak. I followed it, my heart pounding as I approached the walk-in freezer. The door was slightly open. Something was wrong. I grabbed the handle and pulled it open. Inside, frozen in a hunched position, was Mr. Grayson. His skin was pale, his lips a deep shade of blue. His fingers were curled, pressed against the metal walls. And all around him, scratched into the ice-covered surface, were deep, jagged lines as if he had tried to claw his way out. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. My hands trembled as I fumbled for my phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. The next hour was a blur. Sirens, police, paramedics. They pulled Grayson's body from the freezer, but it was too late. His skin was stiff, frost coating his clothes. But the worst part? The look on his face. His eyes were open, mouth twisted in terror. The officers asked me a bunch of questions, but I had no answers. I didn't know how this could have happened. I kept thinking, he left before me. He locked up. How did he even get back inside? Then one of the officers checked the security cameras. I stood behind them as they played the footage from last night. It showed me at the counter, making the taco for my roommate. It showed me rushing to the door at 4:06 a.m. Then, around 4:10 a.m., Grayson walked out, just like I remembered. But then at 4:13 a.m., he came back, except it wasn't really him. His movements were slow, almost unnatural. His head twitched as he turned toward the freezer. Then he opened the door and stepped inside, and he never came out. The store was closed for the next few days. The official report said Grayson died of accidental entrapment, but I knew better. I replayed the footage over and over, trying to make sense of it. But no matter how many times I watched, it never changed. He walked in alone. No one forced him. No one else was there. Then why did he look so empty? That night I stayed in bed, but I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the freezer, the scratch marks, his frozen hands. Around 4 a.m. I heard a whisper. "Lock the doors, Sam." I bolted upright, my heart racing, but my room was empty. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. I didn't go back to work for a while, but the nightmares never stopped. Then, one night I got a text from an unknown number. 4 a.m. Don't forget. I stared at my phone, my hands going numb. I hadn't told anyone. I didn't answer. But the next night, at exactly 4 a.m., I heard my front door creak open. A cold breeze swept through my apartment. And then, the whisper again. "Lock the doors, Sam." I quit Taco Bell the next morning, but I never stopped locking my doors at exactly 4 a.m. I don't know what happens if you forget, but I know what happens when you do. And I don't want to end up like Mr. Grayson, so every night, without fail, I check the time, and I lock the doors. My name is James, and I work the late-night shift at Taco Bell in Atlanta. It's not the best job, but it's easy enough. Most nights are slow, with only a few customers dropping by before closing. Nothing exciting ever happens. But last night was different. It started like any other shift. The restaurant was quiet except for the hum of the fryers and the occasional crackle from the drive-through speaker. My coworker Lisa was in the back, stacking boxes, and our manager had already left. It was just the two of us waiting for the last orders before closing. At exactly 1:55 a.m., a man walked in. He was tall and thin, wearing a dark hoodie pulled over his head. His face was mostly hidden in the dim light, but I could see the way he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was like he already knew something I didn't. He stepped up to the counter and leaned forward slightly. "I'll have the usual," he said in a low voice. I frowned. What's the usual?" The man didn't blink. His smile grew wider. "You already know." A strange feeling crept up my spine. I did know. I had seen this before, in a dream. And in that dream, I had served him his order, and then I had died. I stood there, frozen. The man didn't move, didn't say anything else. He just kept smiling. Images from my dream flooded my mind. It had been so vivid, so real. I was standing right here, just like now. The man had walked in, ordered the usual, and I had handed him a tray of food. But as soon as I turned around, the kitchen lights flickered, the fryer hissed like it was alive, and the walls seemed to close in on me. Then, darkness, and a sound. A horrible, wet sound, like something heavy hitting the floor, like my own body falling. I shook my head, trying to snap myself out of it. "Sorry, man," I said quickly. "I don't know what you mean by the usual." The man chuckled softly. "Oh, but you do," he whispered. Behind me, Lisa stepped forward. "Hey, everything okay?" she asked, glancing between me and the customer. I swallowed hard. "Yeah, just, trying to figure out what he wants." The man's eyes flickered toward Lisa for a second, but then he looked back at me. "You should hurry, James," he said. "It's almost time." Time for what? I felt my hands go cold. The clock on the wall read 1:58 a.m. I didn't know what to do. My gut told me to just walk away, let Lisa take over. but something deep inside whispered that I had to take this order myself. I grabbed a tray and, without thinking, started making tacos. My hands moved automatically as if I had done this 1,000 times before. Meat, cheese, lettuce, one after another. The man just stood there watching. Lisa gave me a weird look. James? What are you doing?" I hesitated. I didn't know. My body was moving on its own, following some invisible script. I was making his order, just like in my dream. "James?" Lisa said again, stepping closer. I turned to her, opening my mouth to explain, when the fryer behind me exploded in a burst of hot oil and steam. Lisa screamed. I jumped back, barely avoiding the scalding liquid. The air filled with the smell of burnt grease, and for a second, the entire kitchen flickered, like the lights were about to go out. When I turned back, the man was still standing there, completely unfazed. "You're almost done," he murmured. The clock hit 1:59 a.m. I backed away from the counter, my breath coming in short gasps. This wasn't normal. This wasn't just some guy ordering food. Lisa grabbed my arm. "We should call the cops," she whispered. "Something's wrong with him." But before we could move, the man finally reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. A receipt. I stared at it. It was a Taco Bell receipt. The ink was faded, but I could still make out the date, today's date. And at the bottom, printed neatly, was the phrase, "Order completed at 2 a.m." I looked up at the clock, 1:59 a.m. The moment my eyes left the receipt, the man's smile disappeared. "You should run," he said softly. I didn't hesitate. Lisa and I bolted toward the back door, shoving past stacked boxes and trays. My heart pounded so hard I could barely hear anything else. Behind us I heard the rustling of movement, but not footsteps. It sounded like something dragging. I pushed open the back door and stumbled into the cold night air. Lisa was right behind me, gasping for breath. "What the hell was that?" she cried. I don't know," I stammered, "but we have to go." We ran to my car, but before I could grab my keys, I heard a sound that froze me in place. A door creaking open. I turned. The Taco Bell entrance was wide open. The man was gone. But inside, the lights were still flickering. And in the middle of the counter, sitting on a tray, was the order I had made. The usual. We sat in the car, too scared to move. The restaurant was silent now, as if nothing had happened. Lisa whispered, "James, we should just leave." I wanted to. Every part of me screamed to start the engine and get out of there. But then I saw the clock on my dashboard. 1:59 a.m., 1 minute left. Then, from inside the restaurant, I saw something move. A dark shape, standing behind the counter where I had just been. Then, the lights went out. Lisa grabbed my arm. "Drive, now." I turned the key so fast my hand slipped, but the engine roared to life. As we peeled out of the parking lot, I glanced at the rearview mirror one last time, and I saw him, standing outside the restaurant, watching us go, smiling. I didn't sleep that night or the next. The police found nothing strange at Taco Bell. No security footage, no proof that the man had even been there. It was like he never existed. Except for one thing, the receipt. It was still in my pocket, the ink now completely faded, except for the final words. "Order incomplete. See you next time, James." I don't know who he was. I don't know what would have happened if I had stayed. But I do know one thing. I'm never working a night shift again. My name is Ryan, and I work the late night shift at Taco Bell in Denver. It's usually quiet around this time, just a few customers coming in after midnight. And by 2:30 a.m., the place is almost dead. The job isn't exciting, but it pays enough. And honestly, I don't mind the peace and quiet. That night, everything seemed normal, until my manager, Steve, walked up to me while I was refilling the drink station. "Ryan, meet Ben," he said, pointing to a guy standing near the fryer. Ben was tall and lanky with messy black hair and dark eyes. He was wearing the standard uniform, but something about him seemed off. He stood completely still, hands tucked into his pockets, watching me with an odd expression. I nodded at him. "Hey man, first night?" Ben smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yeah, looking forward to it." Steve clapped his hands together. "Cool. Show him the ropes, Ryan." I sighed but nodded. Teaching new employees wasn't my favorite thing, but whatever. "All right, man. I'll walk you through everything." Ben didn't say much as I showed him around. He just followed me, eyes scanning the restaurant like he was memorizing every inch of it. When we reached the drive-thru station, he finally spoke. "I used to work here," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I frowned. "Wait, really? When?" Ben turned to look at me, that strange smile still on his face. "A while ago." Something about the way he said it made my stomach twist, but I shook it off. Just another weird night. Or so I thought. The night went on like usual. A few cars rolled through the drive-thru and Ben handled the orders without issue. He was quiet, but he worked fast, almost like he already knew how everything operated. At one point, I stepped away to grab more napkins, and when I came back, Ben was standing by the counter staring at an order ticket. His face was completely blank, like he was lost in thought. "You good?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, he looked up at me. "This order," he murmured. "It's wrong." I glanced at the ticket. It looked fine. Burrito, 2 tacos, and a drink. "What's wrong with it?" Ben blinked, then shook his head. "Nothing. Never mind." He walked away, leaving the ticket on the counter. I stared after him, a strange feeling creeping into my chest. Something wasn't right with him. He didn't act like a normal new hire. He moved like he had been here before, like he had never left. That's when I noticed something weird. The ticket he had been looking at didn't have a name, no receipt, no order number. It was just there. I picked it up and felt a chill run through me. The ink was smudged, but I could still make out a date. 5 years ago. I had to ask someone about this. Steve had already gone home, so I went to my coworker, Lisa, who was wiping down the tables. "Hey, do you know Ben?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. Lisa gave me a weird look. "Who?" "Ben, the new guy." She frowned. "Ryan, there's no new guy." I let out a nervous laugh. "What? I literally just worked with him for the last hour." Lisa crossed her arms. "Dude, you've been alone since Steve left." My stomach dropped. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." I turned and scanned the restaurant. Ben was gone. The fryer was empty. The prep station was clean. It was like he had never been there. "Check the cameras," I said suddenly. Lisa raised an eyebrow but grabbed the tablet from under the counter. She pulled up the security footage from the last hour, and my blood ran cold. On the screen, I was standing at the register, talking to no one. I saw myself pointing, nodding, moving around the restaurant as if I were training someone. But there was no Ben. He wasn't there. I stumbled back, my breath coming fast. Lisa was staring at me now, concern on her face. "Ryan, what the hell was that?" I didn't know what to say. I had talked to him. I had seen him. But he wasn't real. I needed air. I turned and headed for the back storage room. Maybe I just needed a break, some space to think. As I leaned against the cold metal shelves, I noticed something carved into the wall near the freezer. It was a name, Ben. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. The carving was deep, like someone had scratched it in with a knife. Beneath the name, there was another set of words. "Still here." I stumbled back, knocking over a box of paper cups. The sound echoed in the empty storage room. I wasn't alone. I turned to leave, but the air around me suddenly felt heavy, thick, like something unseen was pressing down on my shoulders. Then I heard it. A whisper. "Ryan." My breath hitched. I spun around, but there was no one there. Then, bang. The freezer door slammed shut. I ran toward it, gripping the handle, but it wouldn't budge. My breath came out in frantic gasps as the temperature dropped, my skin prickling from the cold. Then I heard it again. A soft, dragging sound. Footsteps, coming from inside the freezer. I took a step back, my pulse racing. Then right in front of me, something moved in the frost-covered glass of the door. A shadow. It was standing there, just on the other side, watching me. The whisper came again, closer this time. Still here. My hands shook as I yanked at the door handle with everything I had. Finally, it burst open, and I stumbled back into the kitchen. Lisa was standing there, eyes wide. "Ryan, what's wrong?" I pointed at the freezer, my voice barely working. "Ben, he's in there." She looked at me like I was crazy. "Ryan, Ben disappeared 5 years ago." The words hit me like a punch. Lisa swallowed hard. He was working the late shift. One night he went into the freezer and never came out. I felt sick. Then who was I talking to? Lisa didn't answer, because we both knew. I quit that night. I didn't care about the job anymore. I didn't care about answers. I just wanted to leave. But before I walked out the door, I glanced back one last time. And there, standing behind the counter, was Ben. His eyes locked onto mine. His smile stretched just a little too wide. And then, just as the lights flickered, he vanished. But I could still hear him, whispering, "Still here." My name is William, and I work the evening shift at Taco Bell in Seattle. Most nights are the same, long, quiet, and a little boring. People come in, grab their food, and leave. Nothing unusual ever happens. At least that's what I used to think. That night, it was almost closing time. The restaurant was nearly empty except for a couple of customers finishing their meals. I was cleaning the counter when the drive-through speaker crackled. "Welcome to Taco Bell. Can I take your order?" I asked. There was silence. Then a woman's voice came through, software slow, almost like she was speaking from far away. "I'll have the usual." I glanced at the screen, expecting to see an order pop up, but nothing appeared. Could you repeat that?" I asked. "The usual," she said again. A strange feeling settled in my stomach. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I don't know what your usual is. Could you tell me what you'd like?" Silence. Then the screen flickered and suddenly an order appeared. 1 taco, 1 drink, no name, no payment. I leaned out of the window, looking around, but there was no car outside. The drive-through lane was empty. "Hello?" I called. No response. I felt a shiver crawl up my arms. I should have just ignored it, but something about the whole thing felt wrong. And then, as I turned toward the security monitor, I saw her. A woman, sitting in a booth inside the restaurant. But I hadn't seen her walk in. And something about her face made my breath catch in my throat. I stared at the security screen, my fingers tightening around the counter. The woman sat completely still in the corner booth, facing the camera. Her face was too pale, her eyes wide and unblinking. I turned to my coworker, Jason, who was refilling the napkin dispensers. "Hey, did you see that woman come in?" I asked. He glanced up, confused. "What woman?" I pointed toward the booth. "That one, in the corner." Jason frowned. He turned his head, looking directly at the booth, then back at me. "Dude, there's no one there." My stomach dropped. I looked again. She was still there, sitting, watching. I turned back to Jason. "Check the cameras." He sighed and walked over to the screen. He squinted, tilting his head. Then suddenly he took a step back. Why isn't she moving?" I swallowed hard. The footage was live, but she wasn't shifting, blinking, breathing, just staring. Then, without warning, the screen glitched. For a split second, her face changed. It became hollow, dark, like something had rotted away. I blinked and it was normal again. Jason backed away from the monitor. "Dude, what is this?" I didn't know, but I was about to find out. I walked over to the register, checking the last order. It was still there. 1 taco, 1 drink, no name. Jason hovered behind me. Maybe it's just a system glitch. I shook my head. What if she actually placed the order? Jason gave me a look. "You're not serious." But I was. Something told me this was real. I pulled up past receipts, scanning through the transactions, and then I saw it. The same order. The same missing name. But the timestamp? Exactly 1 year ago. To the minute. My hand started shaking. I turned back to the booth. She was gone. I rushed out from behind the counter, scanning the restaurant. The air felt colder, like the whole room had dropped in temperature. Jason followed me, glancing around. "She's not here, man." But I knew she had been. I needed answers. I grabbed my phone and typed Seattle Taco Bell death into the search bar. I didn't expect to find anything. But then, I did. An article from exactly 1 year ago. A woman named Margaret Evans had died in the very booth I had just seen her in. The report said she had come in late at night, ordered food, and sat down. Employees found her the next morning, still sitting upright. But she had been dead for hours. Jason read over my shoulder. "No way," he whispered. I looked up at him. "She placed that order tonight." Jason shook his head. "That's impossible." But the proof was right there on the screen. And something told me we weren't done yet. The restaurant was dead silent now. Even the machines always humming in the background seemed quieter. Then, from behind us, we heard it. Footsteps, slow, software moving toward us. Jason grabbed my arm. "Tell me you heard that." I turned around, my breath stuck in my throat. The booths were empty. The floor was clean. Nothing was there. But the footsteps kept coming. Click, click, click. They stopped right behind me. I spun around. No one. Jason backed up. "We need to go." But before we could move, the security screen flickered again. The live feed showed the booth. She was back. Only this time, her face wasn't blank. She was smiling. The air in the restaurant felt thick, heavy, like something unseen was pressing against us. Then, I heard it. A whisper. Not through the speakers, not from the security screen, but right next to my ear. "Where's my order?" I spun around so fast I nearly fell. Jason yelped, stumbling back against the counter. The booth was empty again. The screen glitched, the lights flickered. The machines all turned on at once. Grill, fryer, soda machine, all at full blast. Then, just as suddenly as it started, everything stopped. Silence. The order screen at the register blinked. Margaret Evans. 1 taco, 1 drink. Status, completed. Jason whispered, "Let's get out of here." But before we could move, the receipt printer started up on its own, spitting out a single slip. On it, in faded ink, were 3 words. "See you soon." We left the restaurant that night and never spoke about it again. Jason quit a week later. I lasted another month before handing in my resignation. I don't know why she came back. I don't know if she ever really left. But sometimes when I drive past the Taco Bell late at night, I swear I see a figure sitting in that same booth. And I know deep down she's still waiting. My name is Noah, and I work the night shift at a Taco Bell in Phoenix, Arizona. It's not the worst job, but working late comes with its own set of weird experiences. Drunk customers, long hours, and the occasional broken ice machine are all just part of it. That night, the place was unusually quiet. It was 12:30 a.m., and I was the only one at the counter. My coworker, Jake, was in the kitchen, humming to himself while he restocked the ingredients. The security cameras showed empty booths and no cars had come through the drive-thru in the past 20 minutes. I leaned against the counter, checking my phone to pass the time. That's when the register beeped. An online order had come through. I glanced at the screen. The name was missing. The order list showed nothing, just a blank slip with a total of $0.00. I frowned. "Hey, Jake, did you see this?" Jake walked over, wiping his hands on his apron. He squinted at the screen. "See what?" I pointed at the order. "This, it just came in." He gave me a confused look. "Noah, there's nothing there." I stared at the screen. The order was right in front of me. But when I looked back at Jake, I saw the reflection of the drive-thru window in his glasses. And there, in the window, was a shadowy figure, watching us. My stomach tightened as I turned toward the drive-thru. The window was closed, and the outside lot was empty. But for a split second, I was sure I had seen someone standing there. I walked over and peered outside. The parking lot lights flickered, casting long shadows across the pavement. There was no car, no person, nothing. Jake chuckled behind me. "You good, man? You look like you just saw a ghost." I forced a laugh. "Yeah, just thought someone was there." He shrugged and went back to the kitchen, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I glanced back at the register. The blank order was still there. I hesitated, then printed the receipt. The paper slid out, but it was completely blank. No ink, no numbers, just an empty slip. I was about to toss it when something caught my eye. The receipt was changing. Words were appearing, slowly, like they were being written by an invisible hand. 1 taco. No sauce. Extra time. I dropped the paper. My breath caught in my throat. That wasn't possible. I stepped back, heart pounding. Then the register beeped again. Another order. Same blank slip. And from outside, I heard it. A faint tapping on the drive-thru window. I froze. The sound was light, almost polite, but there was no one outside. I turned back to the register, hands shaking. The order slip was still printing, and this time something new appeared. A name. David Holloway. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. That name sounded familiar, too familiar. I grabbed my phone and quickly searched it. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the results. Then I found it. David Holloway. Died in a car crash 3 years ago. My stomach clenched. He had been hit by a drunk driver. The location? The Taco Bell parking lot. I felt sick. I turned back toward the drive-thru window. The parking lot was still empty. But then, I saw it. A faint outline of a person standing just beyond the glass. Not moving, not blinking, just watching me. The air in the restaurant felt colder, and a strange pressure settled over my chest. My breaths came out shaky as I forced myself to move. I grabbed the receipt and crumpled it. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was just tired. But then the lights flickered. The kitchen radio cut out. And behind me, the freezer door creaked open. I turned slowly. The cold air rushed out, sending a shiver down my spine. The freezer was dark, the shelves stacked with frozen meat and bags of fries. But something about it felt wrong. I took a step closer. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. That's when I saw it. On the back wall of the freezer, written in frost, were the words, "Where's my order?" I stumbled back, nearly slipping on the tile. Jake's voice called from the kitchen. "Dude, what's up?" I ran back to the counter, gripping the receipt like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. I shoved it toward him. "You see this, right?" Jake glanced down at the paper, then back at me. "See what?" The receipt was blank again. I wanted to leave. I wanted to clock out, grab my keys, and never come back, but something told me I couldn't. Not yet. The clock on the wall read 12:45 a.m. The store closed in 15 minutes. I kept glancing at the drive-through window, waiting for something, anything to happen. The longer I stood there, the stronger the feeling of being watched became. Then, the register beeped one last time. Another order. I didn't want to look, but I had to. The screen showed the same blank order slip, but this time a single word appeared at the bottom. Outside. The security camera feed flickered and I saw him. A shadowed figure standing at the edge of the parking lot. Not walking, not moving, just waiting. I couldn't move. My body felt frozen, my mind screaming at me to do something. Jake still didn't see what I saw. He was oblivious, casually cleaning the counters like nothing was wrong. I grabbed his arm. "Jake, listen to me. We need to close, now." He frowned. "We still have 10 minutes. "I don't care, lock the doors." Something in my voice made him pause. He sighed but nodded, walking toward the front entrance. I turned back to the drive-through window. The figure was gone. For a second, relief washed over me. Then the lights flickered again. The radio cut back on, playing static. The fryer hissed violently, like something had been thrown in, and the freezer door slammed shut on its own. I backed away as the register printed one final receipt. The words were smeared, almost unreadable, but I could still make them out. "Order completed. See you again." Jake locked up, oblivious to what had just happened. I didn't say a word to him. I just grabbed my things and left. As I stepped outside, I looked around the parking lot. It was empty. No cars, no people. But deep down, I knew I wasn't alone. The air was still too cold. The silence felt too heavy. And when I turned on my car's headlights, I swore I saw a shadow flicker at the edge of the lot. Watching. Waiting. I never worked the late shift again.